these 10 offenses every day of our life. That is why in almost all ISKCON temples, after Mangalarati, the 10 offenses are recited. Whether you're a new devotee or an old devotee, everyone recites the 10 offenses to emphasize the importance of the offenses. The holy name can be chanted in 3 phases. The offensive stage, the stage of minimizing offenses, and the purified stage. The offensive stage is the stage where one is chanting and committing offenses at the same time. We've known people who are chanting and smoking, chanting and drinking. Anyway, the whole purpose in the first stage is to get people to chant the holy name. As we chant the holy name, associated with devotees, we realize that if I want to make spiritual advancement, I must avoid the 10 offenses. And then one enters into the Namabhasa stage, where one is conscientiously trying to avoid the 10 offenses. And then if you continue on that path, then eventually you get to the stage of Shuddha Nama, of pure chanting. Our acharyas have summarized all the offenses into 10 broad categories, and we should endeavor to avoid them. The first is to blaspheme devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy names of the Lord. This is called Vaishnava Aparadha. And usually one indulges in this due to envy, jealousy, rivalry. That should be avoided. If somebody has some ability, we should appreciate it rather than fault find. In 2 days, we are going to celebrate the appearance of Shiva's Pandit. Lord Chaitanya started a Sankirtan movement in the house of Shiva's Pandit. So there was a Brahmana who was very envious. Shiva is getting so much honor. Nobody is even looking at me. So he thought of a very evil plan to defame Shiva. He kept the paraphernalia, including meat, liquor, in front of Shiva's door so the neighbors could see it. Shiva opened his door the next morning and saw liquor, meat, and all that in front of his door. So Shiva said, "Neighbors, come and see. I was bluffing all of you. I'm actually a devotee of Shiva, of Durga, not Krishna." Nobody believed it. But what happened? That Brahman got inflicted with severe leprosy. He went suffering. He approved, he met the Lord. The Lord said, "You should suffer more." Finally, he was forgiven by Shiva. So the point is, we should avoid jealousy, envy, and that will help us to advance spiritually. To consider the names of demigods to be equal to or independent of the holy name of the Lord Vishnu. Most of us with an Indian background are brought up in the environment where we are taught all gods are one. But when you come to Krishna consciousness, you start reading Prabhupada's books, you read, no, everyone's not one. There is one Supreme Lord and others are subordinates. So to think that all gods are one, you can take any path, is an illusion. And it's an offense. Just by watering the root of the tree, all the branches get nourished. Similarly, by serving Krishna, all the demigods are also pleased. So we should have full faith and give with full concentration devotion to Krishna. Next is to disobey the instructions of the spiritual master, or to consider him to be an ordinary person. The spiritual master is not a magician or a superstar or a super baseball player. He's just a simple postman who is transmitting to you the instructions that have come down through the disciplined succession. The desire of the spiritual master is to see the disciple get attached to the holy name, to see the disciple get attached to scriptures, to see the disciple get attached to serving the Vaishnavas and cultivating humility. The instructions are all aimed in that direction. When we say please the spiritual master, as I was explaining the other day, it actually means pleasing Krishna. Because everything that the spiritual master tells you is to please Krishna. If you say chant nicely, Krishna is happy when you chant his name nicely. He says read the books, you're reading Krishna's Vani. He says eat prasad, eating prasad offered to Krishna, not to any demigod. So this is the desire of the spiritual master. And the disciple should consider himself to be insignificant and a fool in the presence of the spiritual master. Lord Chaitanya was asked, you're such a prominent Sanskrit scholar, why aren't you reading a Vedanta? Lord said, my spiritual master said, Lord, I'm a fool. This is all you're capable of doing. And I told my spiritual master, whatever mantra have you given me, I can't stop chanting. So, Lord Chaitanya said, he considered me to be a fool. So it's not that a disciple has to necessarily act like a fool. If he has some intelligent suggestions, he should certainly make those. But the point is, one should be humble, respectful, and seek guidance. Gaur Keshav Babaji could not read and write, but he had the whole Gita memorized, and he would chant the holy name day and night. His disciple, he had only one disciple. Who was it? He was a scholar beyond anyone's imagination. He took his initiation and he was very humble. So, one should, with faith, accept these instructions. To consider that the Vedic message is outdated or not relevant in today's environment is also an offense. Unfortunately, you meet even so-called modern Hindus who tend to derive the roots of Vedic literature. So the Vedas contain eternal wisdom. They are not subject to any flaws or defects. And as Prabhupada has demonstrated, this knowledge can be applied and studied in any part of the world. So at no point should we think the Vedic message is only for people of one country or one community. It is, as Prabhupada says, for entire humanity. And Krishna says, Aham bija pradapita. I am the seed-giving father of all living entities. One should not consider the chant of the glories of the holy name is an exaggeration, nor should one give interpretation to the chanting of the holy name. In the scripture it is said, Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam, Kalona seva na seva. Chant the holy name, chant the holy name, chant the holy name. We recommend 16 complete rounds every day, and on Ekadasi and special occasions, 25 rounds. But if one can chant more, there is no restriction. The restriction is only on chanting less. So if we can chant more. But not that you chant 16 rounds of Harinam and few rounds of some other demigod mantra. Prabhupada, when he started the movement, he wanted devotees to chant 64 rounds. But as they could not do it, he gradually reduced it to 16, because he also wanted this to be a preaching movement, not just a bhajan nandi movement. So we should have full faith in the holy name of the Lord, namely the Mahamantra, is the prime vehicle through which we can develop love of God in this age of Kali. We should not give some interpretation to the chanting of the holy name. The holy name is simply a cry of the devotee for the Lord. Prabhupada used to give the example, just like a child cries for the attention from the mother. So this is our appeal to the Lord. My dear Lord, please engage me in devotional service. Please engage me in devotional service. We don't have to interpret, oh, this means this means this. The seventh offense is to commit sins on the strength of chanting. On all occasions of initiation, Prabhupada would emphasize that this is the most serious of all offenses, to commit sins on the strength of chanting. If a devotee thinks, I was initiated on this auspicious day, I was initiated in the Dham, I was initiated from the Radha Madan Mohan, so even if I sin, I will be forgiven. This is wrong. The laws of karma are very severe. We very often underestimate how karma works. Sometimes devotees may not follow standards. They may think that they're doing some hanky-panky and no one's seeing it. But we should remember that Krishna is seeing everything. He's a sakshi to everything. And if we commit sins, thinking that, oh, I'm initiated, I'm Brahman, so I will be forgiven, that's wrong. Our mood should be no more sinning, as Prabhupada said. Like Parikshit Maharaj was fasting from water and food. We should fast from sinful activities. We should not think, no, I'm initiated, I can be forgiven. Then this chanting of the holy name is not karma kanda activity. Karma kanda is a sort of business activity with the Lord. I will do this, in return I want this. We are not interested in karma kanda. Karma kanda cannot give you love of God. Narottam Das Thakur says, poison, whether you drink from a golden cup or a clay cup, will have the same effect. So karma kanda activity is not our goal. Vyasadeva had compiled the vast Vedic literature, but he felt that something is lacking in his efforts. He was feeling a little despondent. And as he was meditating, what could be the cause? Narada Muni walked in. Narada Muni said, the main reason for your dissatisfaction is you haven't exclusively emphasized pure devotional service. And that gave birth to the Srimad Bhagavatam. So our philosophy is not karma kanda, but unmotivated devotional service. Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Krishna Bhakta Niskama Tarayeva Shanta Mukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Shanta. One approaches the Lord with an unmotivated mood will always be peaceful. And one who is hankering for benefits, like merging with the Lord, living on the same planet as the Lord, will always be unpeaceful. The next offense is to preach the message of the Lord to the faithless. On the one hand, the Lord says, Jai Dakotai go, Krishna bless. Whoever you see, please give him Krishna's message. On the other hand, we are saying, don't preach to the faithless. How do you know who is faithful, who is faithless? Are people wearing a sticker? I'm a faithful devotee of Krishna. I'm a faithless devotee. No. So, when we go on Harinam, we just chant. We don't try to discriminate. So we may chant the holy name everywhere, but the deep meaning of the holy name may be revealed when somebody has some faith. Just like if somebody wants to know your name, you give him the name, but you won't give him your residential address till you have faith in the man. Am I right? Then to maintain material attachment in spite of chanting the holy name. Every day we hear of those activities that are detrimental. And in spite of hearing, we still maintain attachment. That is not good. That's an offense. When we hear something, read something undesirable, we should avoid it. Then another aspect of the 10th offense is to be inattentive while chanting. Last night we were speaking on verses from the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, and you may recall that Krishna said, Arjuna, have you heard this philosophy with an attentive mind? So, when it comes to reading, chanting, we should be attentive. When we chant our 16 rounds, we should be attentive. Now, what does attentiveness mean? At a certain level, attentiveness means complete control over your mind and senses. But in the initial stage, we can start off by just chanting when we are doing our japa. Not that I'm doing japa with one hand, driving a car with the other hand, answering the phone with another hand, and doing some other errands with another. And you will find the more respect you show to the holy name, the faster will be the spiritual advancement. So, new devotee or old devotee, our focus should be to improve the quality of our japa. And that can be achieved by only concentrating on your japa when you're doing japa. When you're chanting beyond 16 rounds, you can do multiple tasks. But at least when you're doing 16 rounds, do it with concentration. And in addition, we should make it a point to regularly read Prabhupada's books. These books have knowledge, and this knowledge will help us to advance spiritually. So we hope that the first initiate candidate will take this seriously and endeavor to make spiritual advancement. Those who are initiated or getting initiated or desirous of getting initiated should also have good sadhana, have Mangalarati at home. If you can't attend the temple program, then chant these mantras at home. If you can't do Mangalarati at 4:30, you can have it at 5:30. But we should chant regularly the Samsadhava prayers, the Sukadeva prayers, Tulsi prayers, and Guru Puja. And we will find the more our effort, the better the result. God helps those who help themselves. Today, 2 candidates of the local temple are also accepting Brahmanical initiation. And ISKCON Brahmanical initiation is awarded with great caution. In the 18th chapter, text 42, Krishna explains the qualities of a Brahmana. Krishna explains Samodamo tapo socham, shanti rajam eocha, jnanam vijnanam astikyam, brahma karma sabhagajam. These are the qualities that the Brahmin should have. Many people in India think one becomes a Brahmin by birth. And we had occasions when the so-called Brahmin community opposed Bhaktisiddhanta Ji, and I was opposed Bhaktisiddhanta Ji and Prabhupada, where they preached one becomes a Brahmin by Guna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Chaturvarna Maya Shishtam Guna Karma Vivagalatva. So Guna is very important. One should not think, now I've become a Brahmana, I'm an advanced devotee, look at my Brahmin sweat. The sign of spiritual advancement is one becomes more and more humble and more proud. So, the qualities of a Brahmana, Shamodamatapo Socham, Shanti Rajam Evocha, Jnanam Vijnanam Astikyam, Brahma Karma Sabhagajam. Shamo means peaceful. A Brahman is peaceful. A Brahman is peaceful because he should be single-pointed. I want most conducive for spiritual life. Not that I want spiritual life and material life. In English there's a phrase, you want your cake and eat it too. The cake looks nice. The icing is nice. But at the same time you want to eat it. And to eat it, you have to cut the cake and make it ugly. So you can't have it both ways. If your Brahmin means, I want to make spiritual advancement, and I accept spiritual activity. Dhammo, self-control. A Brahmin must have control over his mind and senses. Actually, self-control is needed at every level. One should not think, oh, I'm a brahmachari, I'm brahmachari, I don't have to have self-control. If you want to succeed spiritually, you must be self-controlled. Lord Rishabdev says, Tapo devyam putaka jnana sattvam shudain ismanava sokyam nantam. My dear sons, if you perform austerity for the pleasure of the Lord, in exchange you will realize unending spiritual happiness. So self-control means controlling your senses and mind and body. Socham. So some of the more tapo. Tapo means austerity, which we have just discussed. Socham, purity. Prabhupada often said, purity is the force. What does it mean, purity is the force? Purity is the force means I am chanting, observing sadhana bhakti, and that will give me real strength. Real strength comes from practicing the process of sadhana bhakti. So purity is the force. We have this famous mantra in ISKCON. Preaching is the essence. Books are the basis. Purity is the force. Utility is the principle. If you are pure, endeavoring for purity, Krishna will be pleased. Krishna is not pleased just because you sing nicely, dance nicely. Krishna is more pleased. You may be simple, with no qualification, but you're following the process of purity. That will take you back to Godhead. Then, Shanti, tolerance. We've discussed this point many times. The devotee should be tolerant. Lord Chaitanya emphasizes tolerance in the third verse of the Shikshashtaka. So, in the material world, they will be honored and dishonored. Today you're honored, tomorrow you're dishonored. There will be victory and defeat. They will be loss and gain. But we have to learn to be undisturbed. And that is only possible once we are spiritually fixed on the devotional path. If you are spiritually fixed, you will remain undisturbed. So Brahman must have tolerance. And the strength to practice tolerance comes from sadhana bhakti. Then jnana. Jnana means knowledge. So Brahman, as we said earlier, must have spiritual knowledge. That's why it is often recommended that one take Bhakti Shastri before taking Brahmanical. Have you all done Bhakti Shastri? Both of you? You should do it online. So Brahmins must have Bhakti Shastri degree because they must have a certain level of knowledge. You may have knowledge, and if you don't apply it, then that is undesirable also. Jnanam vijnanam. You must apply this knowledge in practice. In India you meet students from Sanskrit schools. They memorize the whole Gita. If you look at the character, and you see a lot of discrepancies. So it is important that we have this knowledge and we apply this knowledge. And those who have Brahmanical initiation, they should regularly come to the temple, do deity worship. Brahmins can cook for the Lord, clean the altar, paint, dress the Lord, offer arati. These are all endeavors that help us on the path of purity. So we hope that those who are accepting initiation into the Brahmanical order will be genuine Brahmins and not namesake Brahmins. They will act like Brahman, display the qualities of Brahman, and engage in worship of the deities, which is essential for a Brahman. Prabhupada wanted this movement to have genuine Brahmins. So we hope that the candidates accepting first and second initiation will make a serious effort to make spiritual advancement. Just like in material life, we are always hoping to make progress, am I right? You're on a job, you don't want to be stagnant on the job. You want to get promoted, am I right? If your income, salary remains stagnant, you feel frustrated. So similarly on the spiritual path, we should also keep endeavoring to make spiritual advancement. Am I getting attached to the holy name? Am I developing humility? And am I developing respect for other Vaishnavas? Do I have a mood of service? These are yardsticks through which we can examine our spiritual progress. Spiritual progress cannot be bluffed. Spiritual progress cannot be derived by cheating. It can only be obtained by honest means. So we hope that the candidates accepting initiation will keep endeavoring for spiritual advancement. And those who are already initiated will also continue to make an effort for spiritual advancement. And that should be our ultimate goal. We should be spiritually healthy, which means I'm chanting my rounds, reading my books, I'm associating with Vaishnavas, and that will keep us enthusiastic and fixed on the spiritual path. Hare Krishna.